Hi everyone, it's Keep My Pants here, and today we're gonna play the Hungry Lamb. It's just a demo right now, but basically it's set in like traditional China like wuxia style, so I thought, why not? Let's just get started. I know that the demo is in Chinese or in English, but the real game isn't out yet. But okay, let's go. See, I often ponder why my father named me Lang. Let's just auto this. Lang, meaning virtuous. The character Shan resembles an open-mouthed sheep. As I gaze at it, I can almost hear a sheep's gentle bleating. Perhaps if one is as gentle as a sheep, Lang suits them. But I don't see myself as a sheep. I'm a wolf. Ooh.
娘，送她回家了。
Hi. A rough and quiet echo from nearby. I glanced sideways, observing a man approaching. He trod on twigs and fallen leaves, steps askew. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the woods, sampling everything, yet he aptly hid himself in the shadows. Where is he? Oh, there he is. I sized him up. Adorned in a straw hat, clad in raincoat, and holding a gourd, he seemed more than a fisherman than a menacing figure at a first glance. His appearance made it easy to let one's guards down, so unusually he was tasked with leading the sheep here, and then I handled the rest. This fellow was another wolf accompanying me. Ooh. His name is Xixing, but I prefer calling him Tang.
喂，问你呢，干嘛不说话？处理干净了吗？
All set. Seized the moment when the sheep wasn't vigilant. Gave him a quick stab.
现在丢哪儿了？
Oh.
买
Buried.
仔细了没？这里离城可不远，别被野兽刨出来。
Okay, I guess I just killed someone. Bury him tight. No worries.
行，那
Oh.
他身上都有些啥呀？
5 silver pieces, over 200 coins, rag clothes, and a pouch. So this guy that they murdered had some money. I get 4 pieces, you get the rag clothes, and the pouch is mine.
凭啥？
This time only 1 sheep I killed and buried him, so I should get more.
行吧，就这样吧。荷包多少钱？
Okay, not much, just a regular stuff. What does that mean?
我看看。
Tang wanted to take a look at the pouch. I reached into my waist pouch and pulled out this item for Tang to see. The pouch was small, easily held in one hand. By common belief, a sheep's pouch might contain a handkerchief or some papers, but it was empty. The pouch was red, sewn together with patches that it looked new, adorned with pale characters on top. Is it Chuan? Or... I chuckled softly. How did the pouch end up with this embroidered character? The sheep's name contained An. The character An means safely. Or was it his wish to pouch to guarantee safety? If it's the latter, this pouch truly failed to fulfill his hope.
妈的，确实是破东西，卖不了几个钱，你自个儿收着吧。真不知道你为啥稀罕这些羊毛，每宰一只羊都得留点羊毛。 小心哪天留了痕迹，把你给害死。
No big deal. I gave the pouch a squeeze and tossed it into my waist pouch.
好，趁着天没黑，咱快去华州搞点酒肉。
Tongue patted my shoulder, taking the lead.
娘，这次你分的东西多，可得你请啊。
行吧. I casually replied to Tongue, pressing my hand and my hat, bringing it down. Following Tongue, I strolled each step, accompanied by the crunch of leaves underfoot. It's okay not to pay much attention to these sounds, but if you did, they became quite loud. It's like the birds' chirp and monkey calls have disappeared and the whole forest was now echoing with a crunch of crushed leaves. 2 wolves, we trotted across desolate mountains and wild ridges step by step. Upon passing a tree with a sturdy, twisted trunk, I couldn't help but glance a few more times. I knew. What did you know? Beneath that tree lied the sheep I slaughtered. Oh. Huh. Luoyang, Chapter 2, The Year of the Cat, 1632. The sun hung high, almost blinding, but its ray lacked warmth. I couldn't shake the memory of the childhood sun, so warm and inviting. Now it felt different. Perhaps it was a sign of the fading dynasty, an era gripped by misfortune where even the daylight had grown cold. Gulp. Perched on the boulder in an inn in Hodso, I emptied the last drop of my flask. The fire liquor seared in my throat, yet its warmth brought a refreshing coolness. My stomach. My stomach. In bygone days, I deemed myself an unfortunate soul. However, this year of calamity, savoring its fire liquor proved to be a rare stroke of luck.
呀，有活了，还是个大活。
A familiar voice echoed in my ears. I glanced over, and there was Tung standing behind me. Same old attired, bamboo hat, raincoat, he seemed like a fisherman. Tung's eyes gleamed, smiling at me, ready to spill some good news. What's the job? I gave him a quick look, inquiring casually.
城北有间客栈，关了尹三儿留的几只小羊。本来呀，这几只小羊是尹三的人去送的，但他们犯了别的事儿，被官兵给抓了。
哦，
他现在无人可用，让我们替原本的人办事儿。
I won't handle lambs.
哎，你会错意了？我当然知道你不杀小羊啊。
Then what's the deal?
我们要送几只小羊去洛阳。
Oh, human trafficking? My heart sank. I finally got what Tung had been hinting at with his mysterious talk. Whenever he sought me out before, it usually meant dark deeds like assassination and smuggling. This time, all secretive like, turned out he wanted us to do a job, deliver some acquired lambs to Luoyang for a good price.
诱口？你不能这么说啊！小羊又不是我们逮的，算不得诱口。不过，
I don't know if I agree with
你
that.
愿意这么想，倒是也好懂一些。你也知道的，尹三儿那人虽然一直是帮我们介绍劫道的活，但是他的主业其实是人牙子。这单确实是要把他搞到的小羊给送到洛阳，不过不是啥恶事儿，是善事儿。
Is it a good deed? How is human trafficking a good deed? I frowned and I didn't want to hear Tung talk anymore.
当然是善事儿啊！哎，你听我说，先听我说。娘，这几年各地大旱，很多羊都被饿死，所以呀，有快饿死的人家把他家的小羊卖给尹三换钱粮。洛阳那边呢，有一只大肥羊啊，它有的是钱，就是生不出小羊，便想从穷地方收几只来养。你想啊，那些穷人家的小羊们本来就要饿死，我们把它送到富的地方去，这样他们的父母不至于饿死，小羊也能吃得饱饱的，所有人都高兴了，咱这是在做善事啊。
I don't agree with that.
不瞒你说，一只小羊100两，4只小羊400两，你我对半分，今后几年都不愁吃穿了。妈的，扭扭捏捏的干啥呀？给个痛快呀！你要是不做这么好的活，我就找别人做。这不是看你身手好，一个能顶俩。
Hold on. I talked to Tung. When do the lambs need delivering?
越早越好，我今天就要去看看。
Fine, I'll join you. I rose, brushing off dust. Tung chuckled, leading the way. Tung said a few words, and I got convinced. It could be the promise of no worries about food and clothing, or perhaps the idea of doing good deeds swayed me. Is it really good deeds, though? Anyways, I'm going along with Tung's plan to see what's up.
哎呦，我的二位爷，我总算把你们给盼来了。哎，快坐，快坐。妈的狗子，没个眼力劲儿，快给二位爷上热酒。
He looks very shady. Just arrived at the inn with Tang and Yishan greeted us with flattery. Guiding us to our seats at the inn, he scolded his workers to bring us drinks. The sudden shift in behavior made me wonder if he was just acting. I stayed standing, eyes fixed on Yinsan, my mind wandering into some interesting scenarios, possibly from my childhood. Love for shadow plays. Whenever I meet someone, their animal form pops up in my head. Most are sheep. Tang and I are wolves. Yisang, though, comes across as a sly fox. This fox's lair was an inn in North Hadzo. No guests came and it closed all year. The inn was a cover. He used it for his business dealings. There's a higher up he answered to. The big boss handed down quests and he passed them on to us. Back then, the jobs we pulled for him were all about hitting caravans. He tipped us off with a sweet haul and we go in. This time, it's a big different, a job involving human trafficking. Whatever the job, we meet up at this inn most of the time.
林三儿，我们来了。梁说他可以接。
Who said I'm in? I haven't committed.
啊，没定。哎呦，梁爷，你可不能没定啊！哎，你身手好，又和星爷熟，这活可不能缺了你。哎，我知道您之前没做过右口的事儿，也不愿意做。只是真的不用担心，你们这次的活只是运送小羊，小羊是怎么来的，要送给谁，都和你们没关系。哎，而且我也不怕给你们交个底儿，这次啊，收小羊的人全是头天，哪怕出了什么事儿，官府也查不下去。
嗨，
哎，再说了，现在兵荒马乱，官府哪能管得上啊？嘿，哎，星爷，您说是吧？
是啊，去他娘的官府！闪地好多地方造反，他们要么在贪钱，要么在藏钱，哪能顾得上我们
Yisang explained to me with Tang's backing up. Tang chugged half a cup of hot wine, backing Yisang and shooting me a signal. No worries about food and clothes, doing good deeds, and times are chaotic. They kept echoing in my mind, challenging my principles. Now, do I dive into the shop or think twice? I'm going to scope out the lambs first then. I take a look at the lambs, and I'll decide later. I said slowly to Yisang and Tang.
哎，行，梁爷愿意看小羊，那就有戏。猴子，去，把小羊带上来。
Yishan shouted, his voice echoing. The inn's waiter nodded, hurrying towards the back door. This doesn't feel right. The lambs are brought up, tied with hemp ropes around their waists, linked to stop any escape. Some softly cried, others trembled, nudged into a line by the inn server standing before me. I kept quiet, scanning the lambs. The first, the second. The leftmost lamb and the second one, they must know each other. Staying close, the older one guarding the younger. Probably sisters, both pretty young. I figured the older sister was 9 and the younger sister was 6. Both sported worn-out clothes, dark skin, rugged, down-shelved faces. Their center frames hinted at a life of poverty. Glancing at them, the older sister scared, yet putting on a brave front, finally locked eyes with me while the younger one shielded away, too frightened to speak. Maybe the old sister aimed to protect the younger one and viewed me as a threat. The third lamb stood out from the first two. Probably in her early school years, she wore old clothes, was small, but had fairer skin than the first 2 lambs. She shyly lowered her head, hesitant to speak, yet her upright stance hinted at an unusual background. Brought the ones on the left, the third, was she snatched? I casually asked Yishan, laying out my judgment.
梁爷眼力真准，不瞒您说， 确实如此啊。左边啊，这俩小羊是姐妹，她们是附近穷山沟的。哎呀，现在各处闹饥荒，他家养不起这么多娃子，便先把女娃卖了，给小儿子换粮吃。
Well, there's always a preference for guys. Yishan spoke slowly, and as he did, I shifted my attention to the two lambs, keeping an eye on their reactions. After hearing that, the younger sister stood there, seemingly a bit lost. The older sister, with a teary eye, looked on the verge of crying.It seemed what Yishan said was true.
至于第三只嘛，出身不错，确实是我们拐来的。
Oh, is it safe for the one you
肯定安全，
snatched?
不安全我哪敢往外送啊？
No way snatched ones are safe, especially when this lamb seemed from decent family. I hushed my tone and I spoke icily to Yishan.
情况特殊，良爷，别急。别急呀，
Yishan chuckled awkwardly in response to my words.
来这边说话。
Yishan pulled me aside a bit, trying to steer clear of the
良
lamb.
爷啊，这只小羊情况特殊，我们查过的。虽然它是贵家出身，但运它没有风险。
How? Why? When does trafficking a noble young lady become risky? Aren't you worried her family might report to the government?
哎呀，不怕，他家现在自顾不暇，怎么可能来找他呀？
Oh? What happened?
他家呀，曾与原都师交往甚密，好像还沾点亲戚。哎，原都师你知道吧？哎，就是那个得罪了万岁爷被切片的，被诛了3族啊。都师死后，他家遭受株连，杀的杀，流放的流放，遭贬的遭贬，早就家不成家了。
I kept quiet. If Yishan's words held true, no one would bother about the lamb this family lost. In times of peace and prosperity, the offsprings of condemned officials were discarded, let alone in times of turmoil. Fine, I'll give the last lamb another look. I nodded, leaving the matter of the third lamb behind, and turned my attention to the last one. The fourth lamb's a young boy. He looked like the oldest, tall, a bit shorter than me, hunched awkwardly, tilting his head. He anxiously looked around, his gaze dodgy and elusive.
三儿，这羊看起来不太对啊，有呆病。
Chung frowned, setting the fourth lamb before him.
是啊，他确实有点呆傻。
小时候患了热病，把脑袋烧傻了。
不是，似乎他就是天生傻。这小羊从小就这样，家里一开始觉得他是弥勒佛转世，就一直养到大。后来闹了饥荒，家里穷了些，不想养这佛了，他妈就把这小羊卖给我们了。
Oh. The fourth lamb got restless, yelling "Mom" loudly. Seeing this, the other lambs seemed to think of their own moms, eyes tearing up, quietly sobbing. Maybe for these lambs, feelings spread like laughter.
三儿，你确定肥羊会想要这种小羊？
Tang asked with a mocking tone, a hint of anger in his
谁
voice.
知道呢？也许哪家也觉得他是弥勒佛转世，想要养呢。
And then what if they don't
洛
want to
阳
keep
那家
them?
说尽量是女娃子，但或许也能看下男娃子，能收的男娃比女娃少多了，也就只能搞到这种的了。
不行，这种绝对不行。
哎，星爷为何不行啊？
先不说我要是肥羊，绝对不想要这种小羊，你给我们运也运不了啊！这弥勒佛带着太麻烦，我和你良爷在路上被他惹急了，一冲动便可能把他宰了。
哎呦，星爷呀，你就不能收收脾气？这是肥羊要的羊，少一只就少一份钱，丢一只，可能都要你们倒给钱的。
那我更不能要了。 我最管不来这种有呆病的，我们管不了他， 若是他一路喊喊叫叫，难免会引来官兵盗匪，到时候所有人都要完蛋。
Agreed. I said it with tongue. The slam is too hard to handle and might lead us to more
哎，
problems.
行，我早知道你会不愿意。哎，正好，也罢。其实我也担心那肥羊会不喜欢男娃，哪怕这种肥点的也不行，大概率会退货。哎呀，哎，狗子，那你还是把那小羊也带上来吧。
What lamb? And what about that lamb? I furrowed my brow, puzzled by Yinsan's suggestion. Before long, the waiter returned with another lamb. The fifth. The lamb stepped out from the backyard, immediately catching my eye. Appeared to be around 10 in the early years of schooling. Donned in worn-out clothes, her skin wasn't dark nor particularly fair. Quite slender, my first takeaway from observing her. She had a small frame, clothes tightly wrapped around her, revealing protruding bones at her wrists. The thin fabric outlined her skeletal structure. Her hair was pitch black, while her eyes had an unusually deep blue hue. This lamb appeared delicate. If she was a bit plumper, perhaps she'd be a beauty in the making.
哟，这小羊看着还不错啊。你这儿的几只小羊，说实话，除了弥勒佛，都还长得不磕碜。
那是，我的货源肯定正。哎，梁爷觉得如何呢？
I don't mind how the lambs look, but I'm curious why she isn't tied up like the others. I noticed the last lamb wasn't tied with a rope around her waist. Curiously, I asked Yisan.
她和其他小羊不一样，她不用绑带。
Huh? You trust her?
放心啊，她不是被卖过来或是拐来的，而是逃荒的时候自己过来的。
Oh.
这娃子呀，是上个月刚来的，像是被调教过。 只要给一口饭吃，什么活都愿意做。哎呀，虽然我也觉得可惜，但你们若是不想带那弥勒佛，可以让他替着去吧。正好啊，他也愿意去洛阳。哎，他是哑巴，但是很懂事，平常不哭闹。你们跟他说会去一个能吃饱饭的地方，他必定愿意跟着去。
我说尹三儿啊。 你这儿的小羊怎么除了傻子就是哑巴？
哎呦，这小羊是哑巴又怎样？二位爷呀，说真的，要不是跟肥羊约好了货的数量，我真不打算把它给交出去。你们别不信，哪怕它不会说话，养大后绝对能卖个好价钱。
它耳朵没问题吧？
哎，没问题的。
啊，那倒也方便。
Having this girl along would be easier than dealing with the boys' issues. I agreed with that, but I wanted more details. Yisan, how old are these lambs and what are their names? Ask
所
Yisan.
属的俩姐妹，9岁和6岁，叫红儿和翠儿。第3只叫琼华，9岁。最后一只小羊，哎，它是哑巴，也不识字，所以很难知道名字。你们就叫它小哑巴就可以了。 哦，年龄还是知道的。我问他是否9岁的时候，他点过头，估摸着就是9岁。
No name. 9 years old. Mute. I looked again at the last lamb brought in as backup. She looks so pitiful. This time she looked up and met my eyes. Surprisingly, she didn't shy away like the other lambs. She stared at me quietly. Her deep blue eyes reflected my image. A subtle mist veiled her glaze, or maybe it was just my imagination. Strangely, during that brief eye contact, a particular thought crossed my mind. She stood out as the only one among these creatures who didn't resemble a lamb. Cat. She appeared cat-like. Huh. Chapter 2. Speak. I agreed to Yinsan's that after Tang and I spent that at Yinsan's inn, The next morning, I tidied up my attire, wiped down the sword, and sheathed it. Before we hit the road, Yisan got us 2 pack horses for the journey. You can't ride them, but they're perfect for carrying stuff. To avoid checks on the main road, we'll take lots of mountain paths. These trails aren't good for wagons, but pack horses will work. The inn was in a remote spot, and very few people were around, especially in the early morning. Tang and I stood by the inn, estimating how much time our job would take and planning on what stuff to bring along.
化州到洛阳路途600里，哪怕日行50里，也要走半个月。
Can't reckon it that way. With little lambs we're looking at, max of 20 miles a day. Taking detours extends the overall journey.
妈的，那就要备30日的干粮和水。现在各处闹饥荒，这么多粮又得花不少钱。
Pack light for now. Buy provisions on the road. Head east. Fewer folks fleeing. Cheaper grub.
行
Sure.
要是我们到时候困在山里，实在饿极了，就吃个小洋葱鸡。
I don't want to be a cannibal. Tongue grinned and cracked a joke. I just shrugged it off and didn't say anything. Time to roll and fetch them. I tossed a quick word to Tongue, grabbing my dagger and headed straight into the inn to call the lambs. I woke up to the little lambs and took them outside. 3 had ropes on their waists, tied together. The meat one, without a rope, bounced around strangely.
梁，你说要不要把那个小哑巴也一起绑了？虽然尹三说他是自愿去的，不用担心会逃，可他这样能撒丫子跑，我不放心。
Yeah, makes sense. I nodded, went to the saddle, and found a rope in the bag. I cut a new rope to the 3rd lambs, tied a knot, and then went over to the mute girls with the other end of the new rope. Oh. The mute girl surely caught wind of our talk. She peeked at me, then turned away. Without looking directly, she stood tall, arms raised on both sides. I didn't say anything, just stood behind her, head down. I took the rope, looped it twice around her waist, and tied a knot at her back. As I wrapped the rope, I could feel how skinny she was. The rope around her waist was half an arm length, so thin. After that, I double-checked the ropes on the little lambs and then tied the rope ends to the pack horse. These knots were really tight, and unless they had something sharp, it'd be tough for them to untie. Even if they tried to cut the ropes, it would take time. Tongue and I kept watch, making it tricky for the lambs to get a chance. When I tied the rope around the mute girl's waist, she went along with it, didn't put up a fight at all. She just seemed sensible, as Yun-san said.
喂，小崽子们，都听好了啊，我们这就出发。这一路上，你们叫我星爷，叫他梁爷。我们要走1-2个月，为的是把你们送去能吃饱喝足的地方。我们出城后一直向东走，走的路大多都是山路，每日走的不多，日行20里便可。粮食我都备齐了，今后我们一天吃2顿，午时1顿，傍晚1顿，这2顿多吃点儿，别的时候不许喊饿。走路时不许交头接耳，不许哭闹，违者罚粮1天。
That's pretty strict.
这一路不要想着逃跑啊！逃者鞭笞数百，打死后还要被我活剥生吃。
Tongue got red-faced and loud and introduced himself to the little lambs and set out his rules. While he talked, he pulled out a piece of thorny vines from his bag and waved it in the air, showing it to the lambs. The young lambs couldn't hide their feelings well at that. When they heard about the place with lots of food to eat and drink, their eyes got big, but when they heard about "I'll strip your skin and have a feast," they all got scared and huddled up. Especially that refined lamb named Xinhua. When Tongue waved her the thorny vine, she got so scared her legs shook, almost falling down. Tongue always liked to see the little lamb scared because of him. He glanced at the frightened Xinhua and put a playful smile on his face. Don't, Duan, time to go. I told Tongue not to overdo it and pay attention to the time.
行，出发吧。
Tongue turned around and yelled at the lambs once more. His shout made the lambs shiver. He chuckled, licked his lips, and led the way forward. We followed Yinsan's chosen path to leave the city. Outside, we headed east along the planned route. To steer clear of the main roads, we had to go through the foothills of Ura Mountain. First, we crossed Shaohua Mountain, then Huashan, and after that, we reached Tongguan, where Yishan had set up a place for us to stay. The mountain roads were tough, taking 4 to 8 days. Tongue and I knew this part around Ohua Mountain well, dodging bandits. But we must watch out for the wild beasts in the mountains. Can't be too careless. We walked to Shaohua Mountain, no talking as we went along. All we saw were endless trees, dirt, and rocks. All we heard were hooves, bugs, and footsteps. After about an hour, Tongue suddenly started talking to me.
喂，梁，你知道群大虫吗？
I heard of tigers.
哦，你不知道啊？群大虫就是成群的大虫，平常时候大虫都是独来独往。前些年陕北闹饥荒，很多人向东逃难，都逃到了一些山区里，被大虫吃了。大虫吃人多了，生崽也多，过2年就都是成群的大虫了。哎，梁，你说，若来了10几头大虫，我们还有命不？
Doubt it.
那不一定，我们手中有刀啊！如果见到大虫，我就挥刀斩了小羊们，放出一堆血来。大虫见着血肉，定不会去咬我们这些持刀的啊，会冲上去分食小羊。那时我们便可逃了啊！
He's definitely not a good person. I mean, I guess we're not a good person either. Tongue burst into laughter, cranking his voice up to the last 2 words. Knew he was doing it on purpose, trying to let the lambs behind us hear. You seem to enjoy frightening these little lambs, huh? Is that fun? I threw a cold remark at Tongue.
肯定有趣儿啊！
Tongue chuckled, dagger slung in his shoulder, moving forward. I glanced back at the lambs. 3 of them were scared white by Tongue's words. The mute one just lowered her head, lost in thought. Was she not afraid of tigers? Around noon, after walking for about 4 hours, we took a break for half an hour. Tongue had some grub first, then said he wanted a quick nap and dozed off against a tree. After that, I handed out food to the lambs, giving each one a bit of dry grub and half a pot of water. The hungry lambs quickly started munching on their dry grub and shared the water. As I munched on my own grub, I kept an eye on them. The 2 dark-skinned lambs, Homer and Chua, if I remember right, ate pretty fast and finished quickly. Homer is the older sister, and she looks after her younger sister, giving her more water. She only took a tiny sip from herself. The well-bred girl who got snatched was still kind of scared. She took the grub really carefully, eyes wide open, like she thought I might stab her while they were grabbing a bite. Surprisingly, even though she's a kid that missed, she didn't complain about the grub and finished it all. Not sure if Yishan did a good job training her after the snatch, or if she just figured out how things are now. While eating, her eyes got teary, and I figured she's thinking about something. Heard it's easier for poor folk to handle a rich life, but rich folk struggling in poverty, that's a tough deal. Probably hits a lambs like her hard. Yeah, besides watching those 3 lambs, I also kept an eye on the mute girl. She shut down on her grub, eating really quick. Looking away for a second, and she polished off everything, like she hadn't eaten in forever.
梁爷
While I was watching over the mute girl, a lamb's voice suddenly reached my ears. The sisters named Homer lifted her arm shyly, calling for me, not quite used to saying my name. What's up? I stood up, furrowing my brows, and asked her.
我们要来抽抽，别的不行了。
Homer told me a bit awkwardly. I turned to look at her younger sister. Gore's face turned really red. She hunched over, holding her legs, just like Homer said. eat, drink, pee, poop, just like folks we had been on the road for a while, and these little lambs probably needed a break. Since homework didn't cover the rules about relieving themselves, they might have been holding it until now. Sure, if we go, just do it right here. I looked at them and casually let them know how I handle this matter.
梁爷，不行。
Why not? Lamb called Chingum seemed uneasy about my suggestion to do it right here. She looked at me awkwardly and then glanced nervously at Tung, who was stretched under the nearby tree. Her eyes showed worry and discomfort. While I wasn't entirely sure of her thoughts, I could guess. Maybe she was concerned that if Tung woke up and saw them relieving themselves nearby, he might find a reason to punish them. Or she might be hinting that being the only girl among guys, she didn't want to do it in front of males. I leaned more towards the first one. After all, these young kids were still a few years away from being adults, and such concerns shouldn't bother them. Alright, follow me with the ropes. We'll head to a spot behind the trees, line up, and take care of it there. I shook the plan and went to the pack horse, undoing the tied ropes. Holding the rope, I guided each lamb past the sleeping Tung towards a cluster of trees a bit away. I left the lambs for a break. When they came back, Tung was still asleep. The lambs took a short nap. I stayed awake, keeping an eye on them and the surroundings. After dinner, we resumed our journey. We walked for 2 or 3 hours at the foot of Shaohua Mountain. Thankfully, we didn't run into any beast or so-called a herd of tigers. Tung said. Kuar stumbled along the way, almost falling. Luckily, the rope tied around her waist was being close to her sister kept her from hitting the ground. The moon shining bright, stars filled the sky. Soft clouds moved so slowly, bugs making a racket. Night made it hard to see, so we decided to find a campsite, at dusk resting until dawn before hitting the road again. We've been through these mountains a lot, found a good mountain lake for camps as dusk to settle in. The lake was good for water and washing, and the conditions were decent. Tung handled the camping and I made a fire. He unloaded tools from the pack horse, gathered some dry straw nearby, and set up makeshift bedding. I grabbed a bundle of firewood and took out the fire-starting tools from the stuffs. With the fire striker in one hand and a piece of flint in the other, I struck the flint hard, producing sparks. Swiftly bringing the flint near the tinder, after a few attempts, a flame finally caught on the tinder. The flame quickly spread from the tinder to the firewood, forming a blazing campfire. The camp served as a warning for nearby base and provided us with a light and warmth. The youngest Kuar happily sat down and got close to the blazing fire. She reached out her hands to feel the warmth of the campfire. Seeing Kuar do this, the other lambs first checked out our expressions, making sure we weren't mad, and then they also gathered around the campfire.
梁，你还真能搭好火呀！我记得你不是怕火吗？
Just done with his work, Tung joined us by the campfire. He brought up my old story. Well, I used to be scared of fire due to my past memories of a disaster. Was scared before, not now.
那是好事儿啊！本来想着你怕火，下次杀人放火，我都不愿带着你。
Tung scared the lambs with his words again, but I didn't feel like continuing the talk. And honestly, when you have to deal with someone, you don't need to resort to arson.
妈的，累死了！要不是怕这些小羊跑了，就该让他们去给咱们拾柴火、铺床铺。哎，梁，中午我休息过了啊，你先睡2个时辰吧，2个时辰后你给我换班。
All right. I nodded and settled down by the campfire until a breeze passed by, making the camp flames sway like torn red ribbons in the air. The fire's wet glow revealed the faces of the lambs, who remained still, perhaps fearing punishment. Yet their shadows had already adjusted to the surroundings. With the flickering firelight, those shadows danced freely, and the crackling of the burning wood added a lively tune to their performance. The scene in front of me brought back memories of the shadow plays I enjoyed during my childhood. Feeling a bit drowsy, while lost in thoughts of Shadow Place, I ended up dozing off. Guess I'll take a nap. With Tongue watching over the lambs, no need to fret. Silently on edge, I clutched the dagger and dozed off. My gaze fixed on the dancing flames, succumbing to the weight of my eyelids, gradually shifting into dreams.
凉，醒醒！
Tongue's voice echoed in my ears. I slowly opened my eyes. Huh? Did 4 hours fly by already? Guess that short nap didn't do much. Honestly, I felt more worn out now. 4 hours passed? I asked Tongue as I got up.
唉，柴火烧了2捆，差不多2个时辰了。
The lamb's okay?
都睡了。
Tongue gestured at the nearby beds. Lambs rested by the fire, Kua and Helm were together, Qinghua and the mute girl on separate beds. Ropes around their waists kept them in place. Okay, I'll take over the shift. I nodded, gesturing to Tongue, and decided to stand up for a quick stretch to refresh myself. Tongue saw me stand up, and then he found a bed and lay down. He dozed off fast, and soon enough I heard his snoring. Now it's just waiting for the sun to rise. Quite a tough gig. 4 hours of sleep daily for several dozen days. So those lambs probably had it better than us. On the way, they could sleep for 8 hours. Once they reached our destination, they might get sold to the fancy sheep. If luck was on their side, chosen by a fancy one, they might have even been adopted like daughters. Even if luck wasn't on their side, becoming servants or maids in these chaotic times was still better than being refugees and bandits like us, right? Thinking about it this way, this job might have been a good deed. Thunk. While lost in my thoughts, a sudden noise caught my attention. As if they turned to see its origin. In the dancing firelight, a lamb rose to its feet. It was Little Mute. Why are you up? I asked Little Mute coldly. No words, she couldn't. Hungry? I asked again. Shook her head. Need to pee? She nodded. Pee. I frowned. In the middle of the night, such a bad habit. She needed to pee, but it was tricky. The rope tied her to the other lambs, and going could disturb their sleep or bother Tongue. Going nearby might not have been ideal, as it could have gotten smelly, and if she did it then, she might have to repeat it when I was asleep. Alright, I'll untie you for now and lead you to Lakeside to pee. Just be good and don't do anything extra. I told Little Mute in a detached tone. She nodded obediently. Rustle. I moved behind her, carefully looking for the knots, and after I finally undid the rope for her. Follow me. I went to the fire, grabbed an unburned stick, lit it up as a torch, and continued forward. Little Mute followed behind me. She kept a grip on my rope, following closely to stay on track. She kept stumbling onto my back, using it to stay steady. We walked over dry branches and fallen leaves, pushed aside the foliage blocking our way, and finally stepped onto the soft soil. We reached the lakeside. Tall reeds bordered the lake. The ground was damp, and it seemed like a good spot to take care of business. Here's a good spot to go, I said to Little Mute, pointing to the nearby reeds. Little Mute nodded and went over. She crouched down to try to untie her belt, but then stood up again. She looked at me, a bit embarrassed. Well, seems like she's shy. She preferred some privacy. Fair enough. She seemed smart. I respected her wishes. I turned around to give her some privacy. After a bit, I heard the rustling sound. She was undoing her pants, doing it slowly, maybe a bit hesitant, perhaps worried I might turn around and catch her glimpse. 9-year-old can think a lot. When I was 9, did I care if there were people around when I peed? Oh, yeah, that might be true. What was that? Suddenly, a chill breeze swept over my neck. Tap. Quick rhythm footsteps echoed from behind. Someone was running right behind me. Little Mute. I turned around, or spun around. The shiny dagger flashed in the moonlight. In her hand, a small dagger glimpsed, and she thrust it upward, aiming at my throat. Her hair fluttered in the breeze, and beneath the noise strands, I saw a pair of eyes filled with deadly intent. Where did she get the dagger? Why does she want me to die? My mind went blank, beads of sweat forming on my forehead. Her sudden attack caught me off guard. What should I do? I'm gonna step back fast. Step back. Gotta dodge the dagger. No time to think, just retreat. But then a problem. I slipped in my rush and went ground by the lake. Unable to stand firm, my body suddenly lost balance, tilting backwards. Damn it. It's over. Cursed silently and I fell backwards. Thump. Two clear sounds. Me hitting the ground and her dagger through my throat. Cough, cough. I stared up at her, my killer little Mute. She put all her strength into the dagger, splitting my throat. Couldn't see her face, but those gritted teeth told me she gave it her all. Must have been used every ounce of strength to take me down. Blood gushed from my neck. Tried to break free, but with my throat like this, it was useless. Little Mute, why did she kill me? No answers. Just grief spread, draining my strength and warmth. With questions unanswered, closed my eyes and embraced death. Ending. Killed by the cat. Well, I chose wrong. Well, that was good so far. Well, I'm gonna end the video here. Maybe I'll choose another one shortly. But, okay, see you guys soon. Bye!